And the reason I became hooked was because I realized the Enneagram is not simply, oh, this is your personality type. The Enneagram is so much more than that. I describe the Enneagram now to my clients as a route map, because that's what it was for me. It's, you know, you do all this work on yourself and you're clearing away all the garbage and all the rest of it. But I actually reached a point, and I call it the now what point, because I still felt like I was repeating patterns of behaviour and didn't know what to do with them.
Despite all this tapping, despite working all these beliefs, despite working everything.
Yeah.
And we're talking about probably hundreds of hours of work on yourself. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had reached the point where self-harm was the only option that seemed reasonable to me. And the outcome that I decided I wanted, rather than the self-harm, was a total reconstruction of my relationship with myself. Now, I wouldn't have used those words at the time, but that is obviously what I wanted, because I've been in pursuit of that ever since.
And that's quite forward-like, isn't it?
Yeah. I'll tell you what the Enneagram did for me. You know, you've tapped away all your traumas and all that sort of stuff. You get rid of all the crap. You're in a reasonably good place, and yet you're still doing things, and you think, why? Why am I self-sabotaging myself with this? Why am I behaving in this way? Why can't I be like, you know? The Enneagram showed me. And the first thing it did for me was it gave me a self-acceptance that I have never had before. A totally different level of self-acceptance.
Yes.
Because obviously when you do your EFT work, you're getting lots of acceptance of who you are and what's going on.
Even though I love and accept myself.
Exactly. You know, but the Enneagram just takes it to a whole new level. It was jaw-dropping.
Because the subtitle here says, The Complete Guide to Psychological and Spiritual Growth.
And spiritual growth, yeah. And it is. Because it didn't just say, oh, look, Helen, you're a type 5, and this is how type 5s behave. It also showed
Expect to be like this for the rest of your life. Nothing will change.
Yeah. You know, here's a box, get in it.
Yes.
No. Quite the opposite. It just opened everything up for me, because it was, oh, do you know, people talk about the Enneagram as being about your personality, and to me it's not. It shows me what my motivators are.
Yes.
It helps me to understand me, and it helps me to catch myself in behaviours.
Yes, absolutely.
And the reason it's a route map is because it shows you what the alternatives are.
Right.
What the opposite is.
Absolutely. And the pathway to get out of that. As I often say, I think the thing that you fed back to me once, you said what was really helpful was the line that you say, which I've said in other videos, which is your liberation will always be going in your opposite tendency.
I live by that now, Dan. You gave me that statement, and that is the sentence that comes into my head over and over and over again. Beautiful. Because I catch myself with my tendencies and then start...
Here we go again.
You know, that's me being a 5, you see, thinking my way through it.
Yeah.
But, you know, then, so what's the opposite of that, you know? Now, the great thing about the Enneagram and EFT is the Enneagram's your route map, and it shows you what the opposite behaviours and tendencies could be, right?
Yes.
Well, what's the first thing you do when you're shown what the opposite is? Whoa, I don't want to do that, because it's the complete opposite of what I've been doing so far.
Yeah. Surely this mental process is going to get me somewhere. I've been doing it all this while. I'm going to find peace one day. You know, I want to keep going down. I want the mind to get me this. I think what it does is actually point you deeper into your heart and into the essence of who you truly are, and it gets you away from the ego. Whereas people will look and say, well, it's boxing. What it does is help to understand that you're already boxed.
Exactly.
Your thinking has been like this forever, and it teaches you to get out of the box. I taught it on the NLP training course at the weekend, and I spoke for 50 minutes. No problem, just all about it, and as much as I can to help individuals. And I went around the whole group and managed to find everybody's type, with bar perhaps one person. But we came up with a number of any types possibly there for her, and she's going off to research that, which is always important. It's not about me boxing you or you telling me this.
Absolutely.
It's an invitation to explore yourself deeper, because you will have one type. You're not a type 10. There are 9 types, of which you will be one type. And often when you can't spot your type, that's an indication of that you're not fully conscious of what your issues are, and you're not present enough to know your level of consciousness.
Yeah.
Because when you do, I mean, for example, I did meditation for years, and I learned to still my mind. I started that perhaps just before my father was dying, so I was about 27 years old.
Yeah.
And I remember when the mind was attempting to be still, the ego wanting, which is your propensity within the Enneagram, which is based around security, love and approval or control, the tendency was still towards security. It was still doing, I'm not safe enough. Hang on, we're in a room, we're silent for about the next hour and a half, sitting around a candle in a group and with some lovely music. I don't think it can get much safer than this.
Yeah.
Yeah, ego mind is going, yeah, but a tiger might run into the room, or like, what? All this crazy paranoid stuff, and there's a 6, which has a paranoid tendency. All of this stuff was just bubbling up, and that was one of my first indications of, I can't get away from this fear. This fear is, which is the point of 6 on the Enneagram, which is this point here. It was always there. It didn't ever switch off. There's nothing I could do. And I got into all of this, EFT and NLP, clinical hypnotherapy. I got in as a client and then began to learn it because I wanted to get over this paranoid fear tendency. How can I get over this cowardice that is always there? And I'm always afraid. My counselling was all about, well, you're like this because of your past, because your father treated you like this. And well, hang on, my older brother came up from the same environment, and he's just angry all the time. Well, he's not so much now, but he's an Enneagram type 1. So perfectionists, then their issues to do with anger, not fear. And that explained huge amounts to me. So as a 6 who was always questioning, it was suddenly an explanation to the question of what's wrong with me, and then wonderfully, what can I do to change it?
Yeah.
And it will give you the pathway to transformation.
I used to, 5s, as you know, are withdrawing types. We keep ourselves in reserve. And because I've got a lot of friends who are outgoing, I used to beat myself up constantly. Why can't I be like that? Why, because I could participate for a while, and then it's just like, no, I need to draw back, you know, and they don't hear from me, I don't phone, I don't email, nothing. I just disappeared off the face of the earth.
I have a very strong 5 wing, so I resonate with that,
Yeah, so I would beat myself up constantly about that because I saw that as being a failure on my part. Why can't I do this? Then I discovered the Enneagram, and it says, this is what 5s do.
Yes.
Because you are trying to conserve your energy, you feel as if your energy is being drained, and the only solution that you have at the moment is to completely withdraw, Then it shows me all sorts of alternatives, and I'm thinking, wow, this is liberation. But I'll tell you something else to pick up on what you've just said about family. The Enneagram has allowed me to expand the compassion that I have beyond belief, because, you're absolutely right. We don't want to go around typing other people. But as you start to see the patterns and you begin to recognize what a difference it's made in my family, recognizing that my eldest daughter shows very, very strong 4 tendencies, right? Now, she drives her father insane, right? Because she's so creative, and she's so high, and she's so low, and she's so all over the place, and she's just so exuberant in so many ways, but so deep and so deeply affected and so sensitive, And the Enneagram allowed me to go, oh my goodness, and to be able to say to my husband, look, this is where she's coming from. These are the energies and the motivations that she's got. And it's allowed him to go, oh, okay,
Yeah, because he's a 6, I think, isn't he?
He's a 6.
So he's questioning, what the hell's wrong with this girl? And now he's got an answer.
Exactly. So from the family dynamic, wow, what a game changer. The other thing is, there's somebody in my life who I had thought was a type 1, actually, because of their perfectionistic tendencies. And they're very, very critical. However, just recently, they really started to annoy me beyond belief. They were pushing every button that I had. And I hadn't considered the fact that there's a strong 8 type behaviour going on with them. I went to the Enneagram and I looked at 8s in detail. It was like a light bulb going on. I thought, my God, that's why you're so, and there's so much power and argumentativeness coming from this person. When I read about a type A in that book, the amount of compassion and love that I felt for that person, because I realised that all this power and bluster was them actually struggling to cope with a situation.
Yes.
It's so easy to see it as aggressiveness and I don't like you, get out of my face, go away,
yes,
which would be a normal reaction.
Yeah, it's just how they deal with fear.
It's how they deal with their fear. And the realisation of that, it just flipped that argument around, and I was able to be in a totally different space with that person.
It's beautiful for that, isn't it? For compassion. Oh. And I think this is where I'm friends with I can't pronounce her surname, but Elizabeth Wagler.
Yes, I've always wondered how to say her name.
I don't know. I've never asked. So Elizabeth, I apologise, but we're Facebook friends, and she's a 5, and she's the illustrator of the Enneagram Made Easy.
Yes.
And she's
I
lovely.
Love her work.
She's lovely. And that book's been out about 20 years, and one of the things that she said to me in a private email that I actually then posted was my hope is that the Enneagram will get to the Middle East in order to be able to help the gaining of peace, resolving conflicts. Yeah. So because when we can begin to understand each other, I mean, even if you look at what's going on sort of in the world today at various things, I mean, there's we're 24 hours after or 48 hours after something terrible has happened in Australia with one Islamic fundamentalist. Majority of Muslims are very lovely, peace-loving people, and Islam, from what I've studied, is a beautiful religion. It's another pathway to the divine, of which the Enneagram talks about. It's about surrender to the divine. That's why it's spiritual growth, because when you're no longer addicted to this thing that is in fear, that is wanting to get to be, I want, because when I get, then I can be, which never works. Then there can be a surrender, and that surrender is to Allah, God, life, oneness, the divine, love, all that is, the universe, whatever synonym you wish to use, or whatever name you use for the magic and the mystery of something that's much more vastly intelligent than us. I mean, you look at the sacred geometry on that. I mean, it's not random. It actually goes within each other. As a type 6, I'm here in stress. I go to 3, but in integration I go to 6. Now Helen is a 5, and in stress she goes to 7. But in integration, she goes to 8. So that's rather like Eckhart Tolle, who's an Enneagram type 5. He's gone to 8, which is the leader. And so he is. He's a spiritual leader. People, The Power of Now and A New Earth, those books, I don't believe he had an intention to write that book and get on Oprah Winfrey. But it's the authenticity, and just through taking action, and he listened to perhaps a higher self part that said, you need to go to the west coast of America. Didn't really question it, just went over to the west coast of America and Canada, west coast of Canada, and from there started writing a book. He dried up. He started writing The Power of Now in Canada, and dried up when he went to California, I believe, but down to in America, and then started looking for flights home. What am I doing here? And then listened again to a higher self part, or a part other than the ego mind, that said, go back to Canada, and he did, and he started writing, and he's lived there ever since, and his book has become incredibly successful. But that's because there's a surrender, it's listening to another part of ourselves that is not in this ego wanting to get to be mine. There's something else more powerful and pertinent. And anybody who's had sort of a spiritual shift or transformation will have said that they had a calling. There was something else, and it's not an ego. It's got nothing to do with this. Nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
And we think that the majority of the world problems are all about this, and then people try and solve them at this level. But like Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem at the same level of consciousness created it.
So
we have to come from a different place.